Welcome back to another episode of the Technical Area. This week starting off, we got the review show today. Just breaking down match week 6, I believe it was. Another good week. A lot of different kind of performances. Some draws, some big wins. Some kind of sloppy bad games. We'll get to it all. We'll break down or at least review every game, and we'll start that off right now. Get right into things with the Around the Premier League in 180 seconds. So let's get right to that right now. The weekend started off at Sheffield United, where they took on Liverpool. It was looking like the Reds were going to drop their first points of the season, but a Dean Henderson blunder in goal gifted Wijnaldum a 70th minute goal, and Liverpool win 1-0. Over to London, where Crystal Palace hosted Norwich. A 21st minute penalty converted by Milivojevic got the Eagles off and running, and they didn't look back. Norwich were held scoreless for the second time in a row as Palace win 2-0. Over to Villa Park, where Aston Villa took on Burnley. Villa got things started with a 33rd minute goal and held that until midway through the second half when things got a little crazy. 3 goals in 13 minutes, 2 to Burnley, as this one ends in a 2-2 draw. Another close one, West Ham at Bournemouth. This one featured some early goals as both sides scored within 17 minutes. Bournemouth would take the lead in the 46th minute on a Callum Wilson goal, but Aaron Cresswell leveled for West Ham in the 74th to earn a point, 2-2. Next up, the Battle of the Bad. Watford took on Wolves with both teams in search of their first win. Watford controlled the possession, but Wolves would get all 3 points as they win it 2-0. Back to London, where Spurs hosted Southampton. Everything in this one happened in the first half. And Ndombele scored in the 24th to kick things off, but Serge Aurier got a red card just 7 minutes later, sending Spurs down to 10 men. Danny Ings would score to even things up in the 39th, and it looked like things were shifting in the Saints' favor. But 4 minutes later, Kane got on the score sheet as Tottenham wins this one 2-1. Staying in London, Chelsea took on Brighton. The Blues controlled this game from start to finish. A Jorginho penalty in the 50th and a Willian goal in the 76th gave Chelsea an easy 2-0 win. Final game on Saturday, Man City at Everton. This one was close through most of the game as each side scored in the first half to make it 1-1. That would last until the 71st minute when Man City pulled away. Mahrez and Sterling both get on the score sheet as City grab another win, 3-1. Over to Sunday, where there was only one game, Leicester versus Newcastle, and to be honest, it wasn't much of a game. Leicester got out in front early and didn't look back. Newcastle were forced down to 10 men late in the first half, and that opened the floodgates as the Foxes win at home 5-0. Final game of the weekend, Man United Arsenal. All in all, this was a terrible game. Sloppy from start to finish, each side scored a goal as this one ended 1-1. All right, there you have it. That is your Around the Premier League in 180 seconds for this week, match week 6, I believe it is. Again, an interesting week. I'd say was pretty reasonable from top to bottom in terms of how the games went. I think, based on how the teams have been playing and the matchups, I think that it probably went according to plan and as most people probably would have predicted. Pretty basic, simple, chalk, you could say, week here in the Premier League. And, as we do every week, we're going to break down some teams, a little more than we obviously do in the Around the Premier League, but we can't break down every team. And, in the recent weeks, I've been trying to figure out ways to kind of make this better, condense it a little bit, and give you guys more information, but not take up as much of your time. And also, I've gotten some, complaints about the Champions League teams of the week and the relegation-worthy teams of the week and how that gets to be a little confusing, and how the names for that aren't great. Also, to be honest, it's tough to find 4 teams that played really well and 3 teams that played poorly, all in different games when there's only 10 matches really every week. So with that said, I'm going to change things up a little bit here. We're still going to acknowledge teams that perform really well, and we're still going to, get on those teams who didn't really perform well, and we're going to still do the game of the week. But we're going to change it up a little bit. So, we're going to change it up. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change the Champions League worthy teams of the week to a team of the week. One team we're going to recognize every week, unless, of course, there are two teams that played really well and it's hard to decide. But without further ado, let's get into that. The team of the week this week, Leicester. I think this one was easy, a 5-0 win. Granted, let's break it down a little bit. 16th minute, they go up 1-0. In the 43rd minute, Newcastle get a red card. No goals in between there, so obviously, the red card helped Leicester. But I think Leicester would have won this game either way, and I think they probably would have won it pretty easily. They controlled the possession. They controlled, in large part, a lot of the game. Just taking a look at the stats now, 13 shots to 5 shots on target, or with 5 shots on target for Leicester, 3 with 0 shots on target for Newcastle. Obviously, the possession, those stats a little altered by the fact that there was a red card. But I think Leicester were still the better team. And it's not easy to score 5 goals, whether there be a red card or not. I mean, no matter who you're playing, Tottenham, struggling side, got beat 7-2 midweek here, against Bayern. And they had a red card in their game, and they didn't give up any, or they only gave up 1 goal after that. And granted, Southampton is no Leicester. Southampton's definitely not Bayern. But it's still difficult. You see teams kind of, able to cruise to a finish, but Leicester kept their foot on the pedal. They grabbed 5 goals in this one with their 5 shots on target. 1 own goal. And they really looked great. They've been looking really good for a really long time now. Just checking, I think they've now won 1, 2, 3. They've won 3 games in a row in all competitions. Obviously, that includes their 4-0 win at Luton Town in the 3rd round of the Carabao Cup. But, really, I think they've only lost 1 game all season. They've only lost 1 game all season. That was to Man United, which I think was a little bit of a fluke because, as we can see, Man United's not very good and Leicester is pretty good. So, but focusing on this performance, granted, yes, they did have, Newcastle did have a red card. They did get forced down to 10 men, but Leicester pushed them, went out there, fought really well. And to be quite honest, there wasn't another team this week that really performed overly well. Man City did win 3-1 at Everton, but it was 1-1 for a majority of that game. Man United and Arsenal, as I mentioned, were both terrible this week. There was a couple other draws. I could have given it to Crystal Palace, but the early penalty and the fact that they were playing Norwich, a team that did beat Man City, but hasn't had has now had a bad couple of weeks. That's why I went with Leicester City. I think they just really performed extremely well this week. Even with the red card, and I think they deserve to be recognized as the team of the week, and really so far probably the team of the year, due to the fact that they're finding themselves up in 3rd place in the table and just firing on all cylinders so far this season. Moving on now, we used to do relegation-worthy teams of the week. Gonna probably find a different name for this as we evolve this show and trying to bring in new segments and try and bring in different things. But for right now, we're going to call it the underperformer of the week. And that's going to be the team that underperformed. Did not play well when they should have. And really, kind of provided a lackluster performance. And of all the games this week, let's go through them again. Brighton at Chelsea, Brighton didn't really underperform. Chelsea just played really well. Man City at Everton, that was a good game. Leicester, Newcastle. Newcastle got the red card. Leicester significantly better. Arsenal at Man United, both teams underperformed, to be quite honest. But they're playing each other. Really, if you go through all of them, I think there's only one answer to this one. And I think it's Liverpool. And they even found themselves, we've been doing the show now for, this will be the 6th week that we're doing a review show, I believe. Excuse me. To confirm this, as I've, juggled it for the last, 10 minutes of this, match week 7 to confirm for everybody out there. So this will be the 7th week that we're doing things. Liverpool have been pretty much near the top, always in the Champions League worthy teams of the week. always, one of those teams of the week that we've been recognizing. This is the first time they've really kind of faltered a little bit. And they didn't falter. But to be quite honest, if it wasn't for a mistake by Dean Henderson in goal, that game might have ended 0-0, or Sheffield United was pushing there for a little bit. Who knows? They could have gotten a goal, and it could have ended 1-0 in Sheffield United's favor. So I think that's why I have them here as the underperformer of the week. I just think that obviously Sheffield United's played really well. They haven't given up a lot of goals. They played really good defense, and they've managed to scrap out wins here and there, draws here and there. Get points. But Liverpool, I think, has shown everybody that they are significantly better than pretty much everybody in the league, and that includes Sheffield United. So no matter whether they're playing on the road, at home, no matter what, they got to go to Sheffield United, and they got to get a win by something other than a 1-0 win on a blunder in net by the opposing goalkeeper. For me to think that they, performed well that week. And that's why I have them as my underperformer of the week. They didn't play extremely, extremely well. Just taking a look at some of the stats, they obviously controlled the possession, 71-29, a big control possession. And you expect that, though, with the team you're going to play. Sheffield United is going to sit back. But Sheffield United did have 12 shots, 2 on target, and Liverpool had 16 shots, only 4 on target. So really only about 25% of their shots were on target against the Sheffield United team that, again, they should have beaten. So that's why they're my underperformer of the week. They did get the win. They stay undefeated. They stay, without dropping any points, but not their best performance. And I think that out of every team this week, they performed the worst based on their matchup and how things played out. So that's why I have Liverpool as my underperforming team of the week. And then finally, guys, we're going to get into the final thing here, the game of the week. This one, a lot of good games, but I went with the one that had the late goals, Burnley at Aston Villa. A lot of late goals in this one, as I mentioned, in the Around the Premier League. 3 goals in 13 minutes, starting in the 68th minute. Burnley leveled things at 1-1. Then John McGinn in the 79th to give Aston Villa the 2-1 lead, and then Burnley coming back in the 81st, only 2 minutes later, to grab another goal. So a lot of excitement there towards the end of the game. Really, the other games were pretty, as I mentioned, they were chalk. Man United and Arsenal, 1-1 tie, but both the goals kind of in the middle, sloppy game. Everything else was, just not a great game, not a great week for Premier League. A lot of solid results, or I guess predictable results. And, when you have predictable results, it's hard to pick, games of the week. And, when you don't have too many top 6 teams facing off against each other, that's also makes it more difficult. But yeah, that's why I have Aston Villa and Burnley as my team of the week. I think it provided the most excitement towards the end of the game. And I think when you get towards the end of the game, those last 20, 25 minutes, that's really when everything should be exciting. And, Burnley and Aston Villa giving us 3 goals in 13 minutes there provided more excitement than I think we saw the rest of the weekend. So that's why I have Burnley and Aston Villa as my game of the week. That's all we got for you guys here. Hopefully this episode was, able to go a little bit more in detail with the teams that we're talking about for team of the week, but also kept things a little shorter for you guys. Hopefully you guys got a little more out of it. Obviously not as many teams to break down, but that's what we have the preview show for. We'll break that down coming up. That'll release on Friday or probably tomorrow when you guys are watching this. For anything you want to know about the teams coming up this week, that's where we'll break down every team, every game that we see coming up in match week 8. So stay tuned for that. But for now, that's the review show. We'll talk to you guys then. Peace.